Let me ask you something honestly. If the truth about someone you once trusted showed up on their wedding day, what would you do? Would you stand up and speak, or would you sit there quietly and let a lie become permanent? Because some weddings are not celebrations. Some are confrontations dressed in white fabric and loud music. This one was announced as the wedding of the year. Lagos blogs teased it. Church aunties discussed it after service. Office gossip carried it across glass buildings and crowded buses. A perfect match, they said. A proud groom. A graceful bride. Nobody said it would become the day every lie ran out of space to hide. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. Thick, heavy, expensive. Cream-colored paper with gold lettering, the kind that doesn't ask for your presence, it assumes it. Tund Adebayo and Kemi Lawson. My name sat at the bottom like it belonged there. I stared at it longer than I should have. I hadn't seen Tund in 3 years. Not since the night he looked at me like I was a stranger and said, "I don't believe you anymore." Not since trust broke quietly, without witnesses. Not since I learned how easy it was for someone to rewrite your truth when it no longer suited them. Now he was getting married, and somehow I was invited. Lagos moved around me as if nothing had changed. Traffic groaned. Hawkers knocked on car windows. The radio argued politics. But inside me, everything slowed. Weddings in this city are not just about love. They are about image. About proving something to family, to society, to old enemies who are watching quietly. And this one promised proof. The venue alone told a story. A luxury events center on Victoria Island. The kind that smells like money before you even step inside. The guest list read like a roll call of influence. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a statement. 3 nights before the ceremony, my phone rang at 11:47 p.m. unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Hello? I said. You don't know me, a woman replied calmly. But you need to attend that wedding. My heart skipped. Why? I asked. There was a pause, deliberate and heavy. Because if you don't, she said, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. The line went dead. Sleep didn't come that night. Memories did. Tund's laughter. His promises. The way he used to say my name like it meant safety. Then the distance. The questions I wasn't allowed to ask. The silence he chose instead of honesty. By morning I understood something clearly. This invitation wasn't a courtesy. It was a summons. And whether I liked it or not, I was walking into a room full of people who believed a carefully polished story, one that was already cracking. Tund Adebayo was the kind of man society loved, educated, well-dressed, calm in public. The sort of man parents pointed at and said, that one is responsible. He came from nothing, or at least that's how the story went. Worked his way up. Built a name. Learned how to speak softly while controlling the room. By 35, he had a senior role in a consulting firm. A clean reputation and friends in the right places. Kemi Lawson was the final polish. Elegant without effort. Corporate job. Soft-spoken. Raised properly, as people like to say. The kind of woman that made aunties nod approvingly before they even heard her speak. Together, they looked unbreakable. What people didn't know was how carefully that image had been assembled. I met Tund years before Kemi ever entered the picture, back when ambition still sounded like dreams instead of demands. We met through mutual friends at a small house party in Sorrel. He wasn't flashy. That was his advantage. He listened, asked questions, made you feel seen. For 2 years, we built something real, or so I believed. I supported him when money was tight. I stood beside him when his career stalled. I trusted him when he said, we're a team. Then something changed. He started guarding his phone like it held secrets instead of messages. Meetings ran late. Explanations grew shorter. Whenever I asked questions, I was told I was imagining things. You're overthinking, he'd say. You're making problems where there are none. Until the night I brought proof. Not accusations. Not guesses. Facts. He didn't shout. He didn't panic. He leaned back and said, I don't believe you. That was the night we ended. Quietly. Cleanly. Or so he wanted everyone to think. Months later, I heard about Kemi. A respectable match. A fresh start. By the time wedding rumors started, I had rebuilt my life. New job, new circle, new boundaries. I told myself the past was done. Then the invitation arrived. Then the phone call. What I didn't know yet, what none of us knew, was that this wedding wasn't about moving forward. It was about covering tracks. Because lies don't disappear when ignored. They wait. And this wedding day was about to force the truth into the open, whether anyone was ready or not. Kemi Lawson woke up on her wedding morning with a tight feeling in her chest she couldn't explain. It wasn't fear. It wasn't excitement either. It was the strange awareness that something important was being missed. Her mother noticed it first. "You didn't sleep," she said, watching Kemi stare into the mirror as makeup artists moved around her. Kemi smiled and blamed nerves. Everyone accepted that answer. Weddings came with nerves. Nobody questioned it. Kemi had met Tund 2 years earlier at a corporate networking dinner. He was composed, attentive, careful with his words. He asked about her work, her goals, her family. He never rushed her. After dating men who talked too much and promised too little, Tund felt steady, safe, the kind of man you could build a future with. When he proposed, it felt like a natural next step, not a gamble. Yet there were moments, small, forgettable moments that didn't fully add up. Phone calls he stepped out to answer. Names that came up once and never again. A past he summarized instead of explained. Each time she felt uneasy, she reminded herself not to sabotage her happiness. Every relationship had history. Mature adults didn't interrogate each other like suspects. On the morning of the wedding, her phone buzzed repeatedly. Messages from friends, colleagues, distant relatives she hadn't heard from in years. Everyone wanted to be associated with this day. The pictures would circulate. The video clips would trend. This wedding was already bigger than the two people at the center of it. At the venue, final preparations moved quickly. Decorators adjusted flowers. Ushers practiced smiles. The event planner checked her list again and again. Outside, cars arrived steadily. Inside, anticipation thickened the air. Kemi sat quietly in the bridal suite, breathing through her makeup, listening to laughter from the hallway. She told herself that this was what happiness felt like, busy, loud, overwhelming. Then her cousin Funk leaned close and whispered, "Did you see who just arrived?" Kemi frowned. "Who?" Funk hesitated. "Your fiancée. Old friend. A woman. She looks serious." Kemi's smile stiffened. "Which friend?" Funk shook her head. "I don't know her name." "But people are already staring." Kemi waved it off, though something in her stomach tightened. Tund had mentioned old friends attending. Business contacts. Former classmates. She didn't want to appear insecure on her wedding day. Still, when Funk left the room, Kemi checked her reflection again and again, as if reassurance could be found there. Out in the main hall, I had taken my seat quietly. No dramatic entrance. No announcement. Just presence. I noticed how some people recognized me instantly, while others sensed something unfamiliar and couldn't place it. Whispers moved faster than music. Old acquaintances leaned closer to each other. Eyes followed me, curious but cautious. Tund saw me then. Just for a second. His smile faltered. Not enough for cameras to catch it, but enough for me to see. Enough to confirm everything I already suspected. He recovered quickly, greeting guests, shaking hands, laughing loudly. But the balance had shifted. He knew I was there, and I knew he hadn't expected me to come. The wedding program continued as planned. Music played. Guests settled. The bride was almost ready. To everyone else, this was still a celebration. To me, it was a countdown. Because the truth doesn't rush. It waits for the right moment. And the right moment was getting closer. By the time the ceremony began, tension sat beneath the surface like a held breath. The officiant spoke about love, commitment, and honesty. Each word landed heavier than intended. I watched Tund's face closely. He nodded at the right moments, smiled when expected. But his eyes kept drifting toward the audience, checking, calculating. Flashbacks played in my mind as vows were exchanged. The night he denied everything. The evidence he dismissed. The silence he chose. I remembered how alone I felt then, made to doubt my own reality. I remembered promising myself that if the truth ever demanded a voice again, I wouldn't shrink. When the couple kissed, applause erupted. Cameras flashed. Cheers filled the hall. Kemi beamed, unaware that her happiness sat on unstable ground. Or maybe she sensed it and didn't yet have language for it. At the reception, conversations buzzed. Plates clinked. Drinks flowed. Tund moved confidently between tables, playing the perfect host. When he finally approached me, it was with forced warmth. "I didn't expect you," he said quietly. "I was invited," I replied. He studied my face, searching for clues. "I hope you're here to celebrate." "I'm here for the truth," I said calmly. His jaw tightened. "This isn't the time." "There's never a good time for honesty," I replied. "You taught me that." Before he could respond, someone tapped his shoulder. He turned away, leaving the sentence unfinished. That was his pattern. Always exit before accountability arrived. Meanwhile, cracks had started appearing elsewhere. A groomsman argued quietly with another near the bar. A family friend pulled Kemi's mother aside, whispering urgently. Phones buzzed. Screens glowed. Information moved faster than decorum. I didn't have to say anything yet. The truth had all eyes. People who had waited too long to speak. Stories overlapping. Timelines clashing. Lies folding under their own weight. Kemi noticed the shift first. The laughter around her sounded thinner. Smiles didn't reach eyes. When she approached Tund with concern, he brushed it aside. "It's nothing," he said. "Just wedding stress." But stress doesn't make people avoid eye contact. A woman I recognized from years ago stood up abruptly and left. Another guest followed her. The room grew restless. Something unspoken pressed against the celebration. Kemi finally looked directly at me. Our eyes met across the room. There was no anger in her gaze. Only confusion. And fear. In that moment, I understood something important. This story wasn't just about me and Tund anymore. It never had been. It was about how many people had been shaped by his version of events. How many truths had been buried to protect an image. The music continued. The program moved on. But the energy had changed. The wedding was no longer in control of its own narrative, and the biggest lie of all, the one that tied everything together, was about to surface. The moment arrived without warning. No microphone. No announcement. No dramatic pause. Just a shift in the room, subtle, unmistakable, that everyone felt at the same time. It started with a phone. One bridesmaid stared too long at her screen, her smile thinning as she read. She leaned toward the guest beside her and whispered. That guest checked their phone. Then another. Then another. The movement spread quietly through the hall, faster than the music, faster than the waiters refilling glasses. Kemi noticed. She stood near the head table, bouquet still in her hand, watching conversations stop when she approached. Watching voices drop. Watching eyes turn away as if contact itself had become dangerous. She turned to Tund. What's going on? She asked. Nothing, he said quickly, too quickly. People are just tired. But Kemi didn't look tired. She looked alert, focused. The way women look when instinct stops whispering and starts demanding answers. She walked away from him and toward her cousin Funk. What did you hear? She asked quietly. Funk hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Tell me, Kemi said. Funk swallowed. There are messages going around, screenshots. People are saying, there was someone before you. Someone serious. And that it didn't end cleanly. Heat rushed to Kemi's face. Everyone has a past. Yes, Funk replied carefully. But not everyone rewrites it. That was when the woman who had called me days earlier stepped forward, middle-aged, composed, dressed plainly. She walked straight toward Kemi, ignoring the murmurs swelling behind her. My name is Mrs. Adebola, she said softly. I was Tund's former supervisor. And I owe you an apology. The hall went silent. Tund froze. I helped protect him, Mrs. Adebola continued. Not because he deserved it, but because it was easier than telling the truth. I watched him discredit someone who trusted him. I watched him manipulate timelines and stories to preserve his image. Kemi's hands trembled. Who? She asked. Mrs. Adebola looked at me. That was when I stood. Not in anger. Not for drama. I stood because hiding no longer served anyone. Kemi turned fully toward me, searching my face. You? She asked. I nodded. I never wanted this moment, I said calmly. But I won't lie to protect a lie. Tund finally spoke. This is inappropriate, he snapped. This is not the place. When would it have been? I asked. Before you called me unstable? Before you erased me from your story. The murmurs grew louder. Phones lifted openly now. Whispers became statements. I didn't reveal everything. I didn't need to. Enough people already held pieces of the truth. Enough dots had connected. Kemi stepped back slowly, as if the ground beneath her had shifted. Is it true? She asked Tund. Did you lie? He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time he didn't know which version of himself to present. Silence answered for him. That silence was louder than any confession. The wedding did not end the way it began. There was no shouting. No public collapse. No chaos. Just a quiet unraveling that felt heavier than noise ever could. Kemi removed her ring. Not angrily. Not emotionally. She slid it off and placed it gently on the table between them. I can't build a life on a foundation I don't recognize, she said. Her voice didn't shake. That scared Tund more than anger ever could. Guests stood awkwardly. Some left, some stayed. The band fell silent. The planner whispered urgently into her headset. Tund tried to speak, tried to explain, tried to regain control. But control was gone. The story he had curated for years had slipped out of his hands and rewritten itself in real time. Kemi walked away from the head table and toward the exit. Her mother followed. Then her friends. Not all of them, but enough. I watched her pause near me. Did you plan this? She asked quietly. No, I said. I planned to survive it. She nodded. Thank you for telling the truth, she said. Even when it cost you. That was the moment something inside me finally released. Not anger. Not sadness, relief. Weeks later, Lagos moved on. Another wedding replaced this one in conversation. Another scandal took its place online. Life didn't stop. But lessons lingered. Tund lost more than a bride that day. He lost the version of himself that could hide behind charm and silence. His reputation cracked. His stories were questioned. Doors didn't slam shut, but they didn't open easily anymore. Kemi rebuilt quietly. No public interviews. No drama. Just distance and dignity. She chose herself, and that choice became her freedom. As for me, I learned something powerful. The truth doesn't need a stage. It only needs courage. Sometimes the most important weddings aren't about unions. They're about exposure. About seeing clearly. About deciding who you will be when lies no longer protect anyone. So let me ask you again, now that you've seen how this ended, if the truth showed up at the most important moment of your life, would you listen?